Welcome back, Mistakes listeners. This is Dave, and this is episode 55. This week we did Super Bowl 50, and this would happen to be part of our Super Bowl extravaganza. This would be part two, where we kind of investigate the other side of the Super Bowl, which is advertising and half game and all sorts of meta that you could say. This episode was recorded on February 8th, 2016. As you know, you can tweet us on Twitter at Parenting Mistakes. You can like us on Facebook at Parenting Mistakes. You can even email us directly at Parenting Mistakes. You can email us directly at Parenting Mistakes at hotmail.com. And as always, folks, sit back and enjoy the show. So, Todd,
yes, sir.
In our pre-show, you actually said that and actually in our last episode, you actually said that you hosted a Super Bowl party at your house.
I did.
What did you do to set it up? Because this is actually part two of our Super Bowl special.
So we invited a couple of families over. We have actually had a party at a different friend's house for the last 2 years, just to catch up. I'm in Los Angeles, Dave's in Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
I am a loyal Seattle sports fan.
Which I'm beginning to understand better now than I did
Yes.
before.
If you know anything about football, you know that the Seattle Seahawks are currently a pretty good team. They've been in the Super Bowl the last 2 years. They were not in it this year. They came close to being in it a third straight year. So we have had a Super Bowl party at somebody else's house the last 2 years. And part of that was due to the fact that I wanted to watch the game.
Oh, okay. Yep.
I did not want to be hosting. My wife and I have people over quite a bit. We like to have parties. And, when you're hosting, and we're happy to do this, when you're hosting, you're refilling the chip bowls and you're telling people where stuff is and you're throwing stuff in the oven and that sort of thing, which is great. So this year we actually hosted a party. We had some friends over, and it wasn't super complicated. We had a bunch of hors d'oeuvres. It's kind of a grazing event, if you will.
Sure.
Lay a bunch of stuff out. I made a bunch of chicken wings. My wife made some pulled pork in the crock pot. Some people brought some fruit.
Oh man, that sounds wonderful.
Yeah, we had a big bucket of sodas.
Yeah.
One lady brought some asparagus wrapped with prosciutto. I mean, it was good, and some desserts.
It's like television Thanksgiving.
A little bit is, but with appetizers.
Yes.
And what usually happens, and I've been to a bunch of Super Bowl parties. I know you have not.
I have to admit, I created one for this podcast.
I know you did.
I created my first very own Super Bowl party.
I'm proud of you for that.
Okay, yes. So, as you know, this is part two of our Super Bowl special. This time we're going to be talking about the culture.
Yes.
And we're going to be talking about the halftime special and some of the commercials that we saw. All the things that surround the Super Bowl.
So what usually happens at Super Bowl parties, at least the ones that I have been at, is there's people there, and you've got one group of people that is sort of watching the game, and then you've got other groups of people that maybe just be sitting in other parts of the house, chit-chatting. Usually kids are sort of running from here to there, and depending on the ages, whether you have to watch them or not, my kids are older, Dave's kids are younger. I don't have to watch my kids. So they are here and there and everywhere. And it's kind of I don't want to say it's a chaotic event, but it's a little bit of a chaotic event.
Mm-hmm.
There is no form and structure. People can kind of do what they want. The game is on, and the volume, at least usually when I'm at a party, is it's loud enough you can hear it, but you have to sort of pay attention because you don't want to get into this big sort of audio tussle with the rest of the house.
Right.
So, and this is our segue, and I know this having talked to people over the years. People will go to Super Bowl parties that have really very little interest in football.
Yes.
They don't care about the teams. They don't care about the sport. They go for a couple of reasons. Well, I'll say 3 reasons. One, just because it's a social event. There's people.
Three reasons.
3 reasons.
There you go.
Okay. But I think you'll
Tell me, Todd, what's this
Okay,
about?
I'll tell you the 3 reasons that outside of the football.
Yeah.
Okay. One, just because it's a party. People invite you to a party. You like to hang out with those people, so you go to the party.
Yeah, I like parties.
Regardless of what's going to happen or what's being served, you just kind of go, sure, I'd love to come over.
Yes.
And you go. 2, people go for the food. Because it is not uncommon for people to do what we did. You got a whole bunch of munchy food. Lots of
I mean, we did the same thing. We made a bunch of grubby grub food, right?
Yeah.
It's
Stuff
grubbing
is bad
time.
for you, and you just kind of go back a few times. You get little plates, and you just sort of munch, and then you go back. And
Yeah, we did that.
Yes. And then the third thing people go for is commercials. And if you're not aware of this, the Super Bowl has become sort of a cultural event in the advertising world because, are you ready for this, Dave? I'm going to give people some really good business principles here.
This is a pretty big third point there, my friend.
Yes. When you're advertising, you want to go where the people are.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah.
because the Super Bowl draws, I don't know what the audience is. It's like 100+ million eyeballs around the world. It has become a time to debut commercials. And these are typically big hitters. You know, your Budweisers, your car companies, your Doritos. And then there will be a few companies there that are like, they're going to blow their whole budget on this one ad and hope that they can snag some people. And companies pay between, I didn't read what it was this year, but they pay millions of dollars for a 30-second spot.
Sure, that makes sense.
Because, yeah, the
Hey,
network.
imagine if we had a parenting mistakes 10-second spot.
Yeah. That would cost us. Yeah. We mortgaged both of our houses.
Hey, but we could be.
get 10 seconds. We're just like, got a podcast, parenting mistakes. Please listen. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thumbs up. Whoops.
So there are people that, and I've actually talked to people that do this. They leave the room, not like they're, they don't like it, but they'll walk out and get food and go to the bathroom while the football is on. And then people go, oh, commercial break, and they
Right.
run back into the room to watch the commercials.
Yes.
So what we thought was we should talk about this as a cultural event and also appropriateness for kids, and also throw in the halftime show, because the halftime show.
Yes. I think we're already there. I mean, I think you've already kind of we're already into the show, Todd. This is no longer the intro.
No, I know.
We lost the intro after your 3 points there, my friend.
That's fine. Well, we discovered after the last podcast we had quite a bit to talk about anyway.
Oh,
so
my word. Jeez.
So to add one more piece, and then we'll talk about this. The halftime show, for many, many, many years, is a musical act, and a pretty big one.
Right, and they actually had a Lady Gaga scene at the beginning, too.
Right, and usually there is a big-time celebrity to do the national anthem.
Right.
And fun fact, I don't know if you know this or not, but
I'm ready.
You can bet on everything in the Super Bowl. Not just the score, not just who's going to win, but everything.
Really?
There are people that will bet on the length of the national anthem. So some bookies or some betting house, some casino, some whatever will say, here is a length of time. 2 minutes and 30 seconds.
Wow.
You can bet the under or you can bet the over that this is how long the national anthem is.
Oh my gosh.
People bet on the coin toss, whether it's going to be heads or tails. People bet on all sorts of things.
Whew.
So
That's crazy. So I tried to embrace this. I actually have a projector, and I projected the football game up on an 80-inch screen, right?
Nice,
And I
nice.
rearranged my entire living room to basically get my friends over there to watch it as big as we could. The problem is that we were trying to stream it, so I had all sorts of technical difficulties trying to make it occur.
Okay.
So shame on CBS. People are not there ready to stream the football off the internet yet. But what was interesting about that was dealing with technical difficulties is another aspect of the entire thing. And I had, because I'm an entertainment dude, I had all sorts of contingency plans to keep the football going at all times.
Okay.
Which at one point had me airplaying football off my phone, which at one point had me actually people running up to my office to watch it on my TV in my office here, where I usually do my production of Parenting Mistakes, right? But eventually it started to stream downstairs for it to do that. But yes, the grazing, all of that happened. It was, I think, a very good football experience slash kind of like what you might experience for a football event, right? Oh, my TV went out, or oh, here's some technical difficulties. And I don't think every football event or Super Bowl event goes off perfectly, right? I had
Correct.
some guy who I knew was going to a friend's house who actually had a 100-inch screen, but had an 80-inch screen backup and several rooms that were dedicated to the football event. All I could say is I felt like our house was a little bit like B-dub-dub, right?
Yes.
Every TV had football on it, every phone had football on it, and you could go to the grazing table and experience your cheese and salami and cake and all that stuff. So this is where it gets a little bit interesting for you and I. We talked about this in the previous episode. Football itself is a stop-go, stop-go, stop-go event. And you're right, half of that event, or half that time that you're watching, is the entertainment of the commercials.
Correct.
Now, I have to tell you something, Todd. I have always felt, not being a football fan, or actually watching the Super Bowl itself, that watching the Super Bowl commercials out of context has always been boring. I've always thought the commercials were never that good or all that creative. But I've always seen them out of context because you go to a website the next day after football, or even like now they've got it like 3 days before football, where you can watch all of the commercials and you can watch them all in a row, and they've never really hit a chord to me. But
Okay.
I have to admit that this time they did. Because now it made sense as to where they sit. So there's an incredible amount of an intentionality of where the commercials are going to sit throughout the entire game. Which is crazy to think about, but they know that there's going to be certain groups that are going to be watching certain things at certain times, so, and you're probably paying more to be what that dog, monkey, baby commercial, right? Did you see that thing? That was near the beginning.
I saw it later. Yeah, I saw that one. I think I was refilling chip bowls at that point, but I
yeah,
I
and
saw
that's
bits and
another
pieces of it.
interesting thing too, is that people are in and out all the time. So I actually missed the Captain America preview. The one commercial I wanted to see, I missed. But all these ads are really short. So if you turn your head, you're bound to miss them. But no, I didn't miss the dog, monkey, baby commercial, which was just weird. But it sat at earlier in the game, which was a little more excitement, and actually relieved a lot of tension in the room. Like, what is this, right? Like, it broke. I think it was actually around that time they were discussing that pass that had not been intercepted, or the pass failure, right?
Correct.
And
Correct.
that actually was when that commercial appeared, and in context, I laughed my head off. But if I had watched it outside of football, I would have thought this is a dumb ad. Why am I watching this? This is ridiculous. It's creepy. But in context where it sat, I thought, wow, this is really much more impactful than it was when I usually watch the Super Bowl ads, which is a day later or so.
Well, and it's funny because you say, you got it. I found these commercials to be fairly underwhelming.
There you go. But of course, I've never experienced the Super Bowl, and they've always been underwhelming to me. They've never had any context for me as to why Super Bowl commercials are so awesome. I'm not saying these ads were awesome. I've seen a lot of good ads throughout my entire life. But as far as what they're trying to do in association with the Super Bowl, it makes completely more sense now than it ever did before.
Well, and let me ask you this. Is it a good model to our kids to present to them the fact that we are excited about commercials? That this is a form of entertainment?
That is a dang good question, dude. I mean, I like commercials that make me laugh. There's so many studies and research on this stuff. We are not the guys to try to figure this one out. But I can say to you this. I mean, Todd, this is between you and I and the internet. I literally have things that I like to watch that are commercials. So I like to watch movie trailers, which are commercials. But they've gotten to the point now where there is a commercial in front of a hot movie trailer. I have to sit through a commercial. So for me to watch the Captain America trailer that I missed for Super Bowl, I had to watch another ad. Right. I'm watching an ad to watch an ad. Where have we come? Right? That's crazy. But because of the exclusive nature of the football, I would dare say that these are little, not ads anymore. They're like little shows that
they are little shows
that you're going to be watching and getting a chuckle, or oh my gosh, it's so bizarre, or I can't believe I watched that, right?
Well, and that's what's interesting about this is that companies have made these advertisements into little narratives. They've made them little comedy hours because, admittedly, if you watch
I want to break right there. That's exactly right. It breaks from whatever is happening in the football game to do this little humorous segment. And I understand why the Super Bowl is such a huge package now.
Yes. Well, and admittedly, some of the commercials, if you really watch them, if you really analyze them, you sort of say, this has nothing to do with the product.
Yes.
This is emotional manipulation where they're basically trying to say, hey, look, we're funny. You like funny people, right?
Sure. What was the George Takei Taco Bell ad? Cheese inside the crust. They were doing something. I don't even know what it was, but
yeah, I mean this
is better than whatever this is going to be.
Well, and this is the genesis of celebrity endorsements because these people are paid, and they may or may not even use these products, but they're recognizable, and so you say, hey, we got Alec Baldwin to do this Amazon ad.
Right.
We got, this singer to do this Pepsi ad. I don't even know who it was, So let me ask you this about commercials and kids. Appropriateness of content with some of these commercials. We've got beer. We've got elements of sensuality.
Oh, the Beyonce ad. I'm sure you're going to reference that. How can you not, right?
Well, and you've got the NFL Babies ads.
Right.
Did you pick that up?
I did.
Okay. Is the Super Bowl, are the ads, and this is not uncommon to sports. When you watch sports, you're going to get a lot of alcohol and trucks and stuff that stereotypically will appeal to guys. Is this appropriate for kids to watch some of these commercials?
Knowing what I know now, I'm trying to pinpoint this in my mind. Because the whole event is attached. It's not just these ads. Do I want my daughters to sit down and watch ads instead of say Little Lunch? No, of course not. Hey, go watch ads, kids. But it's kind of the experience. That's what's hard. It's hard to basically pull that out of the Super Bowl and say this is not a part of the Super Bowl anymore. They are basically attached to each other right now. You can't have the chocolate without the peanut butter now.
Right.
Now that you have both, it's hard to separate. Yes, I would say some of those ads were wildly inappropriate, and some of those ads didn't even make sense. My daughters were watching don't drive home drunk. Right? I think you're a real jerk. You're a real a-hole excuse my French, she didn't even use bad language. She's just like, I think you're a real creep for actually sitting down and drinking before you go to drive. And that whole diatribe, right?
Right.
Or how about the domestic violence ad? Right? Did you catch that one?
Yes.
That was creepy. That one actually scared me. I was like, this is frightening. Of course, I don't think my girls would get that.
Right.
Right,
Well,
so now there's new vehicles that are entering into it. It's not just the classic Bud Light ads, which were in there,
yes.
but there's actually some quote-unquote education being thrown at people as well.
Right. Some of it, of course, is a little disingenuous because they're being put out by companies that are part of the problem.
Correct, but making you feel better about them at the same
Right.
time.
Right. I mean, how would you explain to a kid saying, yeah, this beer company is asking us not to drink and drive? The kid might go, well, why don't they ask us to just not drink in the first place, and then we don't have to worry about driving?
Oh
and
my
then you
gosh.
go, yeah, that would make sense.
This being part 2 of our episode, there is nothing easy to discuss about the football because it is so overtly complex. There are so many ironies. You're right, absolutely. We have a beer company telling you not to drink and drive, right?
Yes.
To make you feel okay about drinking that beer from that particular company. But don't drink too much of it.
Right.
But if you did, we'd make a lot of money off you.
Right. Enjoy responsibly is their tagline.
Right. What's the responsibility there? Nothing. I'm sorry. It's just it's almost level. It's on the level of insanity.
It
It's
is.
so crazy.
All right. So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about the halftime show.
But okay, are the commercials appropriate for kids? Some of them.
Some of them.
Majority,
Yes.
no, and I would say a lot of them they wouldn't even get. But they're there in this culture, right? We're having the Super Bowl party. So what do? You tell your kids to turn their heads during commercials? I don't know. It kind of goes back to our part 1 episode, which is like, I don't think football is something that you watch alone. It's kind of a family event that you have a discussion around, right?
Correct.
Because I'm like, I'm confused as to what Kayleen or Madeline, how they would actually benefit from watching this entire thing or actually being involved in it. To date, they've actually never had to sit through a football game. Right? I'm not trying to be old, fuddy-duddy kidney. I'm just trying to figure it out.
Right.
How do I balance this? And it comes in this giant package, and it's all molded together. So
Sure.
yes, now let's jump into halftime, which actually, in my opinion, was pretty good, except for a few points.
Okay.
I found it entertaining and pretty fantastic in the sense that I can't believe it would be so crazy to be somebody like Coldplay, right? I kept on thinking, if I was those singers, can you imagine being in that stadium with all those cameras on you, the entire world watching you, and what they would be like? Like, it just boggled my mind. There's a scene where you've got the Coldplay lead singer, Beyonce, and the Uptown Funk guy. What's his name?
Bruno Mars.
Yeah, Bruno Mars. All three of them are basically in the camera's face at the climax of that show, and I thought, can you imagine being just one of those three people? It's mind-blowing how much focus is placed on these people and how well and amazing that coordinated effort was. The stage was amazing.
Sure. Again, we are at a place.
So
Go
mark
ahead.
me, I'm dazzled. I was dazzled. Right?
Okay. And for me, I have sort of a different approach. Having watched, being a sports fan, I don't need any of the halftime show.
Wow.
I just don't. And I'm not a huge fan of some of the pop stars that are out there. From a musical standpoint, as a musician, I think they are cotton candy listening in a lot of ways. The outfits that they wear on stages oftentimes are not great in terms of modeling to my kids. And
The Beyonce's outfit, it didn't even look comfortable. I'm like, that doesn't.
they never look comfortable.
It doesn't even look like it would be fun to wear at all, for a second.
So we talked a little bit about this in the previous episode, or at least we alluded to it, as the idea of role models. The whole thing is a package. So do you want your kids looking up to professional athletes because of the physical things they can do? Do you want them to look up to singers, performers, because we will give them their due of being talented to a certain extent, but also partially just because they are well known?
Well, my father even said, wow, that Lady Gaga, she's talented.
Well, she is. She's actually a very good singer.
Yeah, she is. She is very talented. Actually, I'd say none of them were not talented. I think you have to have some amount of talent to be up there. But I guess what I'm saying is that for me personally, I got sucked up into the revelry and the glory and all of the shine, right? And there's a part of my body that says, can you imagine what it would be like to be one of those people? And I think to myself, this is not reality. It is not reality at all. But it is something that they're glamorizing to the point where you're like, and what goes on through a kid's head when they're watching this, right?
Well, I think they want the kids to have the reaction that you had, sort of being mesmerized, sort of
Which
thinking,
I was.
"Oh, I'd love to be a pop star. Oh, I'd love to be on that big stage." Whereas I'm the type of person who watches that and kind of goes, "I don't want my kids looking up to those types of folks, and I just want to watch football. I don't need any of this pomp and circumstance." It's just kind of silly to me. Because every year it sort of feels like, oh, we've got to top what we did the year before. It's got to be bigger. There's got to be weirder special effects. We've got to have this massive stage that we set up in 5 minutes. It's just got to be, a visual amazement. And I just look at it as kind of, you're trying too hard. Have the marching band come out and play a couple songs and then go back off the field.
Well, but half of the event is not for you.
Correct.
Right? You've already said that, right?
And the party that I was at, we had some high schoolers who were mildly interested in the game and were watching, but when the halftime show came on, they're like, turn it up.
Right. Totally.
And at that point I turned on because I had just had my TV on, but for that I turned on my, I have a combo soundbar subwoofer unit underneath my TV, so I turned that on and was cranking the music, and they were... And, again, we've talked about this a bunch of times. There is an interesting sort of connection between, say, parents and younger viewers, particularly if the younger viewers are into something and the parents are not. This is how I know I'm old, because I've had this experience the last few years of watching Super Bowls. When the halftime show comes on, an artist comes out, and I turn to a high schooler and I say, "Who's that?" Because I don't know. Because I just don't pay attention to
I remember in the 80s, just a side note, I remember in the 80s there was a teacher that was said, who is this DePeachy Mode? And every year it's like, DePeachy Mode. But of course everybody started calling it DePeachy Mode, right?
Our mutual friend Charlie, if he's listening right now, yes, we know that you will appreciate that because you're a huge DePeachy Mode.
Yeah,
fan.
love that DePeachy Mode.
So, yeah, it's an interesting balance because there are a lot of things about the Super Bowl, both the game and the commercials and the halftime show, that is not necessarily designed for kids. It's really designed for adults. It's really an adult show, and yet
I would say that magic number of 18 to 35-year-old adult male, right?
Right, and that's the target audience. If you look at the commercials,
totally.
It's
Hulk and Ant-Man.
Yeah.
Beyonce taking off her clothes.
Yeah, think
lots
about
of beer
stuff. Yeah, beer, soda, vehicles, gadgets.
The thing about it that's positive, it goes back to that statement though, and this is the one thing I liked about it, was creating my own Super Bowl party meant a mini Thanksgiving with my friends.
Yeah.
Right? And it was a lot of fun, a lot of food, but I can't say that what we were watching was all that great.
Well, and it's not like you count on this, because some kids will watch, but I would say we turned it on. My youngest daughter and her friends, they watched the national anthem, and then they bailed.
Right.
They went in their room and played.
Yeah, I think my nephew watched in and out, right? Like he kind of came in the room, watched for a couple seconds, wasn't sure what was going on, and he bolted. And I don't think my daughter's ever watched a single clip, right?
Right. But I think you make a good point. I think with parents, if you have a party in the future, if you're thinking about whether or not this is appropriate, all you got to do is look at the commercials and understand that if that's the set of products that are being presented, then the target audience is, to your point, males 18 to
35
or older. That's your target audience.
Right, because or the astronaut who was never an astronaut,
Right.
who gets to drive an Audi really fast.
Drive an Audi.
My dad looked at it and went, "That's not an astronaut. I know them all." Right? I'm 79. I know the astronauts. That's not an astronaut. That's just an old man.
So you're going to watch the Super Bowl again next year?
You know what I'd rather do? Just invite my friends over and have a big spread and watch some silly movie.
Well, you could do that.
But here's what I'll give to you, my friend. If I'm invited to a Super Bowl party, I'll go and I'll appreciate it.
Yes.
But I don't think I'm hosting my own Super Bowl party ever again. There you go.
I'll invite you to mine next year, and you can fly down. How about that?
Okay, sold.
Right.
I'm in.
You can follow us on Twitter, Parent Mistakes. You can like us on Facebook, Parenting Mistakes. You can support us on Patreon. We'd love to get your support. And you can give us feedback on Twitter, Facebook, or our email address, parentingmistakes@hotmail.com.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well, Todd,
another Super Bowl has come and gone.
you know what? I'm glad we're back to normal. We'll
There
be
you go.
doing some more kid shows next week, which sounds like a lot of fun to me.